So I'm going to be talking about the basics of theming and some of the features that we have. Patrick will be talking about 7.1 and how we use it and cool ways that you can use it as well. So for the basics of theming, you start, it's pretty simple. You have to build your theme, you can edit it, edit all the files, and you can deploy. How many of you guys are brand new to Liferay, have not done any of this before? Couple? Cool. And how many of you guys already built themes, already know a lot of the basics? Okay, cool. So maybe a little more have experience, which is great. This beginning part will be a little bit of review, but it's still helpful even for me to remember, oh yeah, I can use all these features. Even after years of building themes, I sometimes forget, oh, I can use a theme setting for this or something like that. So hopefully you'll find it useful. I'll also try to explain some of the concepts that you may not have heard of before, or maybe you heard in this conference that you don't know what those mean. So first, we need to build. So there are lots of ways to build our themes. The easiest, most recommended right now is the Yeoman generator. So we have a Liferay theme generator, which is basically an NPM package, and it allows you to, you can download it from NPM, from your command line, and then it has a lot of options. You can build Liferay themes there in your command line, and it scaffolds it all out for you, creates the infrastructure, and allows you to install it very easily, similar to what you're probably comfortable with front-end dev. But you don't have to use that if you don't want to. We also have an IDE. So Liferay Developer Studio is free or available to download, and you can create themes in that. That's an Eclipse plugin that you're able to use and then able to deploy your themes that way if you prefer use that workflow. Or you can also just use the command line. There's a ton of tools. You can use the build process that you want. Blade is a way that, or a Liferay API that we use to help you build themes. So there's lots of Blade templates for creating themes. You can also use Ant, Maven, Gradle, whatever you want, whatever you're comfortable with. There's lots of options. All of this is documented on liferay.com, but there are lots of ways that you can start to create your theme, which is very helpful. You're not tied to one way. So once you've created your theme, you want to edit it. So this is the structure of a theme. I mean, theming in general is just skinning your page. So it's going to be the style, the JavaScript functionality that you're writing into the theme. It's not, when you're thinking of the portal context, it's not all of the portlets necessarily, but it's the wrappers of the portlets. So it's the header, it's the footer, it's everything around it. So these are in your theme, the files that you can edit. You got your CSS that you want to edit in custom CSS. You have your JavaScript in main.js. You can extend and call all of those things, or extend and call things and import them into those files if you'd like. Our themes have lots of JS files, lots of CSS files that are all imported into those mains. You write your HTML in either FreeMarker or Velocity. FreeMarker is most recommended. So all these .ftl files that you see are creating the actual markup, the HTML of your page. So FreeMarker, and if you haven't used it before, it's just a templating language built for Java. So it allows you to access Java methods, do things like loops, for loops. You can do a lot of stuff. You can import methods from your custom portlets and call those. You can access Liferay variables, lots of things. But in the end, you're just creating your markup for your page. So you're creating the body, you're creating all of that stuff. So your HTML will go in there, and then in your Liferay look and feel, you're going to add your configs. So that's all of the theme settings, different things that you do. We'll reference those a number of times coming up. But those are the four main files that you're going to edit in a theme, and it's relatively simple to know, oh, I'm writing JavaScript, I'm going to put it in main.js. I'm going to try to find a config, I'm going to put it in Liferay look and feel. So we've edited our files. We need to now deploy them. Similar to editing, you can choose the way that you want to deploy. If you're using the theme generator, it's easy. You're already in the command line. You can just run gulp deploy. There's a gulp watch so that you can live change your themes. It's relatively simple from there. If you're using, so if you use NPM or the SDK, if you're coming from older versions of Liferay, you can run the same ant commands, all those things to build. You can run in whatever editor you want. You can also deploy from IntelliJ or whatever editor that you're using, if you're using the Liferay Dev Studio. And you can deploy it to wherever you want. So you can deploy it on your local machine. More recently, we've been using Docker for our Liferay development, and it's really easy to take your theme, deploy it straight to Docker, your Docker container. It's very nice because you don't have to necessarily, in the past in Liferay, you've had to download the whole SDK, all of Portal, build that, have all the plugins, and use the infrastructure for that. But now you can just simply use NPM, create a theme, deploy it to a Docker image, and you haven't had to touch any Java code, any other things. It's much more user-friendly for front-end devs and much more fast to iterate on. So we know the basics of building, but there are a lot of different things you can do with Liferay. So I wanted to give us some examples of how we can do that. So one thing that you can do is extend themes. Extending themes is useful for maybe you have, like us, 5 or 6 different sites across that you use. So like we have our dev.liferay site, university.liferay, community.liferay, our main liferay.com site. We have event sites. So that can be a lot of different themes. And a lot of times you have kind of a base implementation, things that are shared in all the themes. So you can extend themes in a way that is very helpful so that you don't duplicate code. There can be other reasons to extend themes, but essentially just in your package.json, you can say, oh, this base theme is styled right now. You can make it unstyled if you want less to inherit, or you can create a base theme for your company, and then each of your other themes could extend that theme. So you're able to create parent themes and child themes, and that can be a very useful way of keeping your code clean, reducing duplication, or just utilizing what other themes you found can use. So that's a useful thing that you can do. Along the lines of saving code, you can also write themelets. So a themelet is essentially just a module of code. So it can be CSS, JavaScript, it can be FreeMarker, any bit of code that you want to reuse, and you can import it into your theme. So a themelet may be something like on your site, or this is our site, maybe you have this drop-down navigation, and this user sites bar, you want it to be across multiple themes. So instead of having to write that same markup in every single theme, and then when you change it, because marketing wants to change the direction of them, you don't have to go in 5 different themes and do that. You could create a themelet, which would then write the code for the markup there in FreeMarker, and then also the JavaScript to make it toggle or whatever functionality it needs. And then you could create a themelet, which you use NPM, so you would upload it. The Liferay generator will also help you with this. You can create the themelet, and then you can upload it to NPM, and then you can use it wherever you want. So in your next theme, you can just link your current NPM module to your new theme, and then it'll import all those resources. So you have one place where they exist and live, but then you use it and extend it in all the other places. So then in your theme, you can use the same code, but just import it in, which can be very helpful. Another way that you can reuse code is theme contributors. So these are often confused with themelets, but they're different in the fact that a themelet you import into a theme and use it there, but a theme contributor is code that gets put into all of Portal and affects all themes. So it's kind of outside of the theme world. It's basically you're just injecting CSS or JavaScript onto your page. So this could be useful for something like on our page, we have some JavaScript that allows us to do the scrolling functionality. So down here, we have this scrolling, like on scroll. There's lots of things that can do that, but maybe you write some custom JavaScript that does something like that for you. Maybe we want to use that all across our site. We don't care what theme we're in. We don't want to have to import it into all the themes. We just want it everywhere. Maybe you want to track something, add a little JavaScript snippet to track across your site. You can use a theme contributor, which is basically just an OSGI module that's very simple, and there's lots of examples of how to do them on the docs. You can create this OSGI module that you deploy, and it'll put that snippet of JavaScript or CSS or whatever you need anywhere on the site, which can be useful. It can also be very dangerous, so you don't want to like style all form fields everywhere, and then you apply it to all of your things and you break all of your control panel. But it can be very useful when you know where to use it. Another useful thing that you may have used already in themes is theme settings. So we use theme settings for a lot of different things. One of them is for our navigation. So we have a navigation in our theme. It's just one nav, but sometimes, depending on the pages, we want it to be transparent, or we want it to be fixed, or we want it to be static. So it changes its functionality based on the page, because sometimes we have these cool banners that have like background images, but sometimes we don't want it to be that way. So instead of having to create a different theme in order to change that or have some weird ways to handle that, you can use a theme setting, which would basically, in your theme, you can just say, I want to change the navigation type. And then this is something that you custom make in your look and feel, like we had mentioned before. And you can basically give it values and then style it based off of that. So on your page, you just, if I want this page to have a static navigation, then I can. Or if I want it to have a background that's transparent, then I can switch it just in a theme setting. And that gives your themes much more power. You can also do a lot of other things. We've done things like embedding portlets through IDs, through theme settings. They're very powerful because they're just configurations that you can put in your themes. Yeah, which make it very useful. Another way, so we've been talking all about the wrapper and everything like headers, footers, but we also sometimes want to change like portlet styles. And a way to do that is with portlet decorators. So in your theme, you can define also portlet decorators. One of the most useful things I found for this is, so this is one of our pages, and we have some portlets. This is all a layout that's one, but that's 100% width, but then all of these are less, and then there's another 100% width. So you have different portlets that are different max widths. And it's kind of hard to do in the portlet infrastructure because you either have a layout that's like 100% or it's not. So there's a lot of sites today that you're building, they have a lot of fluidity in what they need to build. And so we came up with a way of basically every portlet has a max width unless you add this portlet decorator, which adds a class to the portlet, which says we want it to be full width. So we can have all of our portlets by default work fine. They have their max width, they fit. But on those few portlets that we want to be 100%, we just add an application decorator, which says we want this to be full width. And then on that portlet, you just go to the configuration, the look and feel configurations, change that, and then, yeah, it works. So that is also in the look and feel of your theme. Another option, there are lots of things you can do, are color schemes. So the best case we have for color schemes is actually our events sites, the ones that you use for this symposium and all of our symposiums. We have we have 3 different types of symposiums, and the structure of the sites are the same, but the theme is very different. As you can tell, all 3 of these have unique design mockups. They're all different, but we didn't want to create 3 separate themes for them because they're very similar, structurally they're the same, but the styles are different. So a theme setting allows you to switch between the themes. So we have one theme, but I can choose, oh, I want to use the theme for DevCon, or I want to use this theme for Symposium. And it switches the styles out for you and manages all of that. And that's also just a setting in your look and feel. All very useful things. You probably already know a good case. Layouts have been in Liferay for a long time. So if you do have the traditional like left column navigation, right column, you can create custom nav layouts that you can use. There's already a lot of them built in, so you might not even need to build them. But if you need to build them, you can also create them, use them in your themes. You can preload them. They're all very useful. Those are just simple TPL files. There's lots of examples on the docs how to do those. Another useful thing, this is related to themes, but not as well known, is the context contributor. So a lot of time when you're creating themes, you need more access to variables. So FreeMarker can access the Java methods. You need extra functionality. Liferay has a lot of built-in context variables that you can use, like the request, and you can get things out of the request or different things. But sometimes you need more. Sometimes you have a custom portlet. You wish that in your web content you could access data from that, but it's difficult to do. With context contributors, you can do that. So an example would be all the new GDPR stuff came out. You need to do this banner that says, if it's a GDPR country, I need to show this pop-up, right? So you can then create a context contributor, which is just another simple OSGI module that basically says, I need to be able to access what country the user's in from FreeMarker. So that means we'll run IP geocoder to find, based off the IP, we'll know what country they're from. And then we can put that information and store it in a FreeMarker variable so that in our theme, we can just call our country, like user country, whatever we call the variable. Or in our web content, we can call that, and we can do the logic we need there with the variables we need. It can also be robust enough to add new services. Maybe you need to add a service for, I don't know, you have a new list of, I don't know, products or something from your custom portlet, and you need that to be exposed into web content. You can do that. This is a very powerful, useful thing. You also have to be careful what you expose because it could be security, but very useful to know about, and not as often used as I've seen. And then lastly, something simple. As you all know, there's icons all over your sites. Yeah, Liferay has built-in icons. Sometimes you want to override them. You can do that in your themes. You can also create custom images, put them in your themes, and access them from your themes. You can create sprites in your themes, SVG sprites, and then to help load time. So instead of loading all of these separate, you can create a sprite and then access them from there. Or you can use clay icons. There's a whole bunch of icons that are out of box built into Liferay. So all you have to do is call clay icon, and there's find the list, find the name. You can use those icons. So there's a lot of things built in or simple configurations that you can do to build your themes. So that was a lot of stuff. I don't expect you to like take all of that. If you have more questions after, you can talk to me. But all of this stuff is on dev.liferay.com. If you want more in-depth, high-level overview, if you've never seen themes before and this is really confusing, university.liferay has online courses that you can take that are helpful to give that high-level overview. Also, community.liferay, you can post on the forums. You probably don't even need to post. There's a lot of theme stuff on the forums and in the Slack chat that allow you to get your questions answered whenever you hit problems. So that's the high-level, very fast fire hydrant view of what you can do with themes. But Patrick's going to talk about 7.1 and what's changing and what's new.
So what's changed in 7.1? We've upgraded Bootstrap 3 to Bootstrap 4. The layout changed from floats to flexbox. The units, the sizing units have changed from pixels to rem. We have, sorry guys, added utility classes and browser support. So Bootstrap 4 supports IE 10 and above, Edge, Chrome, Firefox, Safari. For IE 10, you need to prefix your Flexbox properties. So it doesn't really support IE 10. You need to use some kind of prefixer. They like to use post-CSS auto prefixer. Liferay 7.1 drops support for IE 10. So it's IE 11 and all the other browsers I mentioned. So Bootstrap changed a lot of class names and a lot of Sass variable names from 3 to 4. You can find more documentation on the migration site that they have. It only lists the class name changes. The Sass variable names you won't be able to find. Hopefully we'll be able to document it for you guys if you guys used it. The selector pattern, in Bootstrap 3, they used to use nav direct child li. They changed that to nav item and nav direct child li anchor to nav link. So they simplified the selectors a little bit and makes it easier to override. It also makes your CSS render a little bit faster, but you probably won't notice. They also used open and in. They've consolidated that to the show class. So the open class was used in like drop-downs, tooltips, popovers to hide and show hidden content. And the in class was used on the collapse plugin. So like in accordions and the mobile navigation, they would add the in class to make it display. So now that's all show. Bootstrap 3 also had a show class, and that was to hide and show, display none, display block. They've renamed that to dblock and hidden to dnone. So if you had like some JavaScript component that used show when you click a button, and you gotta watch out for that because now it's dblock. They also added a bunch of utilities. You can find all the utilities at this link here. This is a partial snippet of all the utilities that they have. They have a ton more. All of these use the important flag. So you have to watch out if you don't have access to the markup. Like if you're creating some site and you don't want a front-end guy to change the markup, then they can only override it by making the selector more specific and using the important flag. And I've also seen people override it using an inline style and an important flag. And if you don't have access to the markup, you can only remove it using JavaScript. And so the only place I found it really useful in Portal is in web content and fragments. I could create one-off content really quick using these. So things that changed in 7.1 themes. So the link to change your site theme, we moved it. So you go to the product menu, build, pages, and then you click the cog icon, and then scroll down, change current theme, select your theme, and then don't forget to save, because I forgot to save before. Okay, and there you have it. Site navigation also changed in 7.1. This is from the docs. Pages are decoupled from the navigation menu. What that means is we have a section called Pages, and these contain all the pages for your public and private sites. We remove the ability to change the order or hide from the navigation. That's all done now through the navigation menu, and you go to the product menu again, build navigation menus, select the navigation menu. You can add pages, remove, reorder here. So here we're adding the contact page, and then you can move it to the bottom, and then this auto saves, so you don't have to save here. And then you can see the contact page appear there. So in 7.0, we loop through the site pages navigation this way to render the nav in our template. You can still do that in 7.1, but since nav items points to the site pages collection, it'll render the site pages, and you can't change the order, so it'll be there always. So the new way to do that is through the navigation menu macro. And the macros here, it uses the Liferay runtime portlet macro. You can set, there's two properties you can set, default preferences and instance ID. And inside default preferences, you set the ADT using this display style key. And then you can also set the portlet decorator. We use barebone here. I think the default ones are like borderless and decorate. And then the last one is the instance ID. So every portlet has an ID, and if you pass something in here, it'll namespace it by adding it to the end of the ID. So on to Clay. So Clay CSS is our extension of Bootstrap. So if I put it really simply, it's a third-party Bootstrap theme that we made. And it's used in 7.1 everywhere. So I think it's good to know. So how we structured it was we used Bootstrap 4 as the base. We leave it untouched. And all our extensions are in Claybase. So Claybase contains our variables that we added, mix-ins, functions, components that we added, anything that we needed to make Bootstrap work for our design and our layouts. And then lastly, Clay Atlas is a theme that we add on top of Bootstrap and Claybase. And it's a Sass variable theme, and it completely changes the look of it. So when you see classic, it's all done through Sass variables in Atlas. Okay, so because we structured our project this way, we were able to create this tool. It's very beta right now. You can find it at v2-claypaver.wedeploy.io, and it's pretty much a page with components and a list of variables on the side that you can customize. And so you just you just input it and click save, and you should see it render. See how it changes component on the side. I'll give a demo of it later. So Bootstrap 4 has this color palette, and it doesn't propagate very well through the project. So I don't recommend using it. The palette that you should pay attention to are the theme colors. There's like several different states that are used throughout Bootstrap. And I found those useful, but I wouldn't expect too much from that palette. The way I found that it was good to use was to customize by component. So you have buttons, you have inputs, so you style them by component and use your own color palette. Make your own, and yeah, you decide. Don't restrict yourself to this. It's difficult. So this is a little demo I made. You can change the values on the left. Here we're styling the inputs. I wish I could speed it up. Okay, so you click save, and then it'll compile it, and it renders, and now you see your inputs changed, the focus styles changed. And after you make your changes, you can go and go up to the options menu and click export. It'll download the variables to your computer. Then you copy and paste it. This was the variables I changed and what was in the file I downloaded. You could copy and paste it into clayvariables.scss in your theme, deploy it, and then here I'm giving you an example. This is the admin theme I created, and I just popped those variables in. So here you can see the inputs. They look like Atlas. And then scroll down, change it to my admin theme with the variables, and then click save, and you see the variable styles propagate to all the inputs in Portal for the admin theme. So here is, this is a small snippet of components from the Microsoft Office Fabric UI framework, and I took Claypaver and I tried to duplicate these styles, and I'll show you what I got. So I created a duplicate of classic and admin, and I took the variables I changed there and I popped them in, and you can see when I change the theme here, how it'll change the whole look of the site. So here you see like all the inputs have changed, the alert box has changed, and when I go to change my site pages theme, you'll also see how it propagates through all that as well. And so it gives you one place to make your changes, and you can brand the whole site to however you want it to be. I mean, it's not perfect, but it gives you a solid base to start from. Like you don't have to mess around with thinking about focus styles, hover styles. It's all in the variables. You don't have to rewrite all that. Yeah. So, okay, you can go to this link here, https://pat270.github.io, Claypaver. It's just a little document file with links to the demos that I did, how to use Claypaver. Like you can grab the variables, you can import it, and just try it yourself. So that's all I have.
Like if we didn't have the URL, where would we find the tools? Like are they exposed in the documentation somewhere?
So currently,
Can we repeat the question?
Yeah.
Oh, wait.
So he's asking if we don't have this URL, are they documented anywhere? Are the tools anywhere? The only thing, well, do you want to answer it?
I don't know where it is.
Yeah,
I don't think it's
the only
documented.
the only thing the tool is doing is giving you a list of all of the variables that exist and giving you a UI to change it. So the tool is nice because it shows you all the variables and then you update it and it exports them, the ones that you changed. But you can see in all of the themes, like when you build your theme, you can just look at all the variables that exist and you can see all of them and you could change them yourself. So the tool just highlights the fact that everything works on variables now, but you could do it completely yourself. You just need to. Really cool. But yeah, the tool is really cool. So it makes it a lot easier.
I don't think it's documented because I just released this like last week.
Really nice job.
Brandon.
Thank
Any
you,
other
thank you.
questions? We're a little bit over, but one last question.
If you have questions later, just look for one of us. We'll be happy to answer.
We'll be up here. We'll be around.
Yeah. So thank you guys for coming.